Well, my name is Susan. I am a marijuana addict in recovery today. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled it's October 9th. 9's my lucky number. And today I have 36 years clean and sober because of MA. Because of MA. So I wanted to talk about how I got here and how I stay here. And I was thinking, what has always marveled me, it delighted me and confounded me, is how did 3 different groups of people start MA in 3 different locations within 9 or 10 months of each other? And there were no computers. How did they find maybe John knows how they found each other. But what I was thinking last night when I couldn't sleep was we were out I was one of those people in 1986 who wanted to quit smoking pot and couldn't. And I'd been trying to quit for a number of years on my own. And the universe said, well, there's her. And then there's these people in LA, and then there's these people in Orange County, and then there's these people in the Bay Area, and they're all trying to quit by themselves. So why don't I put them together? Because together we can do what we cannot do alone, right? And so the treatment center in the treatment center was in Orange County, the therapy group in LA, and the NA meeting in the Bay Area all converged, and people found each other, and then we started this amazing fellowship, for which I'm so grateful, because when I got clean, which was in October of '86, the Bay Area hadn't started yet. It started in February of '87. Now, I think the LA and Orange County had already started in '86, right? So I'm going to, first I tried NA, and I remember my first meeting, somebody had 5 years, and it was just like, what? But somebody had 30 days, and I thought, well, maybe I can get 30 days. And I hadn't been buying pot up to that point, but I had some in my trunk for a friend. So that was October 8th. I pinched a little that night, and I woke up the next morning, October 9th, and I never used again. And I'd been going to Al-Anon for a couple months, and that helped, because I thought, how am I going to work these steps in Al-Anon if I'm smoking pot every minute I'm awake? So I tried this meeting, and I got it, that they were doing together what I could not do by myself. And so I started going to meetings, and but I didn't get a sponsor right away in any of the programs, because I don't know how to ask for help, because I'm not supposed to ask for help, because it's a sign of weakness. But as you all know, it takes a lot of courage to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not, you have to be pretty darn, desperate. And anyway, so I finally got a sponsor, and she said, you should probably go to AA. They have better recovery. So I'm going to this AA meeting every Sunday morning. It's a step study, which was great, but I'm not talking. I'm not taking chips, because I didn't drink every day. I mean, I am an alcoholic for sure. I'll talk about my story in a minute, but I just wanted to say, that I was in that meeting in about 5 or 6 months, going all the time, staying clean and sober. And at the end of the meeting, when it was over, we said the prayer. Harry stood up and said, we've started Marijuana Addicts Anonymous. And I was like, fucking A, I am there. And it was a Sunday, and the first Berkeley meeting was starting that following Wednesday, and he asked me to chair it. So I got to chair the first Berkeley meeting that first ever happened, and I got to chair my first MA meeting, because I had like 6 months, I was an old-timer. That's how it kind of was, except for John and Kevin, of course, because they had a couple years, like, woo. So that's how things started for me. But how I got here was thinking about, well, I will say, I was sexually abused when I was just before 5 or just after 5, something pretty significantly. And I grew up, it was with a cousin who was a babysitter, feeling like we had this secret. I don't know what he said to me to make me believe that I was complicit, but I was 4 or 5 years old. If you have children, you know how tiny that is. And so when I found alcohol and drugs in high school, it took that away. I had never forgotten what happened to me. And so I think, we don't use drugs because we're happy-go-lucky people. And and growing up with a father who was a rager. He was a pretty scary guy. And he was a cop in San Diego. I grew up 10 miles east of here in Spring Valley. And so I heard, and so, okay, so let me back up just a tiny bit. So 8th grade, it's 1967, 68, I'm in 8th grade, and the only person who's smoking grass is this one bad kid who got in trouble a lot. And I thought, how could he smoke lawn grass? Like, I didn't know, like what? But the next year, it's 68 to 69, I'm in high school, all my friends are starting to smoke pot, but I'm like, I don't want, it's a gateway drug. And I don't like needles, so I better not start, And so I waited until the spring of my 10th grade year to get high, and everyone was so excited that Johnny, who owned a Cadillac, bought a lid. Remember lids? A 4-finger lid, for those of you youngins, and it cost $10, and he rolled 60 joints, and we went to a Rod Stewart concert at San Diego Sports Arena, sitting on the floor, Rod Stewart with his whiskey bottle in his hand. He was a rock and roller back then. And every joint went by me. So I didn't think I got high, if you can believe that. But the next morning, I had fucking resin on my hand from all those joints burning on my hand. And I thought, my dad's going to see. He's going to know I smoke pot. But I never got resin again, and he didn't notice. And I'm the oldest in this alcoholic family, and I didn't get in trouble. My brother and sister are both pot addicts as well. They're not in recovery. And they always were getting in trouble. And so when I got clean and sober, I said, I did the same shit they did, I just didn't get caught. And so high school started, so I was going to keg parties though, and my first beer, I remember, tasted horrid, but give me some more, please, because I'm here to get drunk. So I drank alcoholically from the very beginning, and alcohol does not like me. I have horrible hangovers. I throw up, I have blackouts. If I have tequila, I'm on the floor. And so when I found pot, I was like, yay, I don't have to throw up. Yay, I don't have to have horrible hangovers. Although when I got clean that first week, I realized pot gave me hangovers too. I just didn't know it because I smoked every minute I was awake. So I waked and baked, I never felt the hangovers. Anyway, so I'm drinking, I'm smoking pot, but not every day. And then I got hoodwinked into being the coordinator of the California Coalition of Women Against Rape. And when I'm 20, I organize a conference, because that's what I do. And for all the rape crisis centers in California. And so we took a road trip from San Diego to the Bay Area, and the people with me, the women with me, smoked every minute of every day. And that's when I started. I was 20, smoking and I hadn't really bought a lot of it. I just smoked it when it was around at that point. And my other drugs, if you gave them to me, I would do them, even if I didn't like them. But I didn't ever, luckily I didn't like cocaine, so save the bell from that one. So here I am smoking pot every day, every minute. And I know there was a time when I was like 21 or 22, and I thought, I'm an addict. I mean, and Harry talked about this when we were new, that there's these windows. You get these little windows to jump through into recovery. And if you don't jump through, you don't know when the next window's coming. And there was not another window for me for another 10 years. Because in 1975, whenever that was, recovery was not like in the media. I didn't know anything about recovery. Am I too close? Okay, so I go and keep going, and I got involved with somebody who didn't smoke every day, all day. And we started a relationship, and I'm doing all this rape crisis stuff and other feminist stuff, and I'm thinking men are the problem. And I get involved with this woman who batters me. The universe says, well, guess what? Anybody can be violent. And that lasted for 4 years. It was pretty awful. And when it ended, and I have to sneak pot, because she smoked pot like once a year. So I would sneak pot and, whatever. When it ended, 2 people said, you should go to Al-Anon. And I was like, whatever. What's that? That's like telling me to go to Mars. I was like, okay. And so that was in 81. And then in July 29th of 86, my friend Lori and I were going to go to the movies or do something. I was living in Oakland. And she said, I go to Al-Anon once in a while, and I really could use a meeting. And I was like, well, I'm supposed to go to Al-Anon, so I'll go with you. So I go up these dark stairs into this Al-Anon room, and people are smoking, and everything I heard resonated with me. And because I didn't know my dad was an alcoholic at that point, because I thought everybody's dad drank at night, you know? And he didn't miss work, and I never saw him drunk because he would just sit in his chair. But anyway, so I'm going to Al-Anon, and I'm feeling, like, well, I'm okay. I mean, pretty much. And the irony is, every relationship I've ever had in my adult life is with an alcoholic or an addict, except for the person who battered me where I was referred to Al-Anon. So, okay, whatever. The universe works in mysterious ways. So I'm going to Al-Anon, and that's what I said. Then, it's like, I can't work these steps. How am I going to do this program if I'm getting high every day? Which got me back to the meeting. Because I'd been to one meeting in February of that year, but it was, the chairperson was a heroin addict. And it was an NA meeting, and she was getting a cake for her 1 year, and it was just bizarre to me. And all I could do was compare myself. But the second meeting, when I got back there on October 8th, I didn't compare. And I was like, I'm done trying. I'm done trying to do this by myself. So, okay, let me let you help me. I don't understand it. The God thing, I hated. It's because it freaked me out. I mean, I was raised in a religion, and when I found pot became my higher power. I quit going to church when I found pot, So pot was my higher power for a long time. And, like they say, it's fun at the beginning. It took away that pain that I've been carrying my whole life, and it's fun, and then there's problems, fun and problems, and then there's just problems. And that's what it was for me. And at some point, I wanted to say, I love you all so much. I love this program with every fiber of my being. I just am so grateful that we are here to support each other, because we can't do it alone, and we don't have to. And I got chills all over. So happy to be here, of course. And I never stopped learning. And so here's a couple things. So I remember when I was 11 years sober, I don't know what shit I was going through, and I said, I should be further along. I'm 11 years sober. And, I thought of this the other, and I was like, where did I think I should be other than right here where I'm living with what I'm living with? But that's when I realized that it doesn't matter how much time you have, the tools are the same. I guess I thought when I was new that they were going to be different when I, And for me, I was a newcomer until I was 11, basically is how I felt. And I'm grateful that I didn't try to outwit the program. I did what was suggested. And once I got the sponsor and I was working the steps, the first time I did a 4-step, I did a 5th step with my sponsor, and I was done, and she said, wow, you're really hard on yourself. And I thought she was like a magician. Like, how did she figure that out? I'm just telling my story, and she figured out, because I had no ability to see myself, to see what was going, what my patterns. I didn't know my patterns, my habits. I didn't know how my mind worked. I didn't know my values. I didn't know anything. I was numbing myself all those years. And so I wanted to talk about frostbite, because I was numbing myself, and those feelings get frozen. And the first 5 years are hell. They are hell. But because I worked the steps over and over again, I could get rid of the hell. I could let go of the resentments and let go of the pain and learn new ways. And I think recovery for me is a lot about being kind. It's totally about being kind and gentle with myself. I didn't know that for many, many years, but that has what it's become. If I'm not kind and gentle with myself and love myself, I'm still learning that one more deeply. I can't be loving to you. And that's important to me. Well, let me go back to my 5th year in recovery. And also, the first 4 years, I lived in the Bay Area, and when I was 4, I moved to Portland. And all these people said, oh, we're so sorry you're going. You've really helped me. And I was like, really? Like, we don't tell each other enough how much we influence each other. And it seems like you have to die or move to be told how important you are. So I'm just going to put that out there. And so I moved to Portland, and I'd heard that a lot of people go through spiritual deserts between 5 and 10, and I definitely went through a spiritual desert for a couple reasons. I'll tell you one in a minute. But I'd been going to a meeting every day and getting hugs every day, and here I was bereft of hugs. and going to new meetings and trying to make connections. It really took me 2 years to feel connected in Portland in my recovery community. And MA had died, and there was one meeting where people crosstalked. It was a horrible meeting when I got to Portland. And so then I started a meeting, and that went on for a couple years, and then I got pregnant in 91, and I couldn't go out at night. I was just too tired, and the meeting died. So that was in 91, 92. Okay, so I'm a pretty impatient person, and I like to be in charge all the time. So while I'm pregnant, I pray for patience every day. Okay? Don't do that. So I'm in labor for 36 hours. Yeah, and my daughter's born not breathing. And the next day, and I didn't get to hold her for 48 hours, actually. She actually seized. I didn't know what that was. She was just, twitching. And the next day, the doctor said, well, she might have cerebral palsy. And I'm like, get out of my room. I don't know what that is. Go away. And I got to go. I got 4 months with her without a diagnosis. In a one way, it's lucky I got the diagnosis early, blah, blah. But it was nice being in denial, I'll tell you. And so 4 months, she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Now, I'd heard in the Bay Area, God never gives you more than you could handle. And I was like, fuck God, this is way more than I can handle. And so I went through a spiritual desert because of that. Here's this trauma happening, and I need a higher power. But and I'd heard, fire your old idea of God, and I thought I had. But the idea that, there's this white guy in the sky sending down lightning bolts to teach us lessons was how I was raised. And it kind of came through, and I was like, that's not the higher power I want. The higher power I want loves and cares and comforts me. Life happens. People make mistakes. The doctor made some huge mistakes, and that's why I need a higher power. It's not that, So that was a big turning point, and I didn't get there right away. It took me almost 2 years of her life, and, taking her all these appointments and looking at the charts and going, she's not doing this, she's not doing that. And my marriage was falling apart, thank you. And we went to therapy, and the therapist said, well, tell me about the birth. So I tell him about the birth. He says, well, why don't you do a grief ritual? And, being a former Catholic, I do love ritual. So I created a ritual, had friends in recovery come, and we talked about lost dreams, and I created this, this baby in paper that was who I thought I was going to have. I thought I'd have a kid who could walk and talk and, all that stuff. You don't think you're going to have a child with a disability when you get pregnant, right? And so burned her up. She went away, and I realized in this process that my daughter wakes up smiling every day. She's a happy kid. She's healthy. Cerebral palsy is a motor function. It's a brain injury causes motor issues. And she's relatively mild in the scheme of cerebral palsy, so yay. But I realized that I wasn't seeing her because I kept comparing her. So I threw away the developmental charts. I said, okay, kid, you're on your own. You develop whatever. And that's when I realized my addiction, my addict brain focuses on what's wrong. I wouldn't use so long if I was able to be grateful, right? I was like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with the world? I better keep smoking pot. And so and that was the first time. I was 7 years sober, and I finally had a gratitude practice. I was like, oh, okay, I have feet that do what I want them to do. Hallelujah. My eyes move where I want. My mouth moves, you can understand my speech. My daughter's speech is very hard to understand to this day. She's now 30, and I found out Friday that she's got a place to move to. She's been living with me for 30 years, okay? We're both tired of each other, especially me. And we found this community a couple weeks ago, because we're like disability advocates. We don't want her to be segregated, blah, blah, blah. And there's nowhere for her to be safe without a little bit of support. She doesn't need a lot of support. She can do most things by herself. So we found this community a couple weeks ago, and we're waiting. There's 2 openings. And Friday, the plane lands. I turn on my phone, and there's an email. Call me I have an update. And I call her while I'm standing in the airplane, waiting to leave, and Marie has a spot. It's a miracle. It's so good. I'm going to drink some water. So anyway, here I am, 7 years sober. I'm finally, before that, gratitude, if people said they were a Grateful addict, I was just like, ugh. And November was gratitude month, just like, I just didn't get gratitude. And that ritual and everything, my daughter's my greatest teacher, of course. So I'd be driving her to daycare, and I'd be going to work, and I'd say my gratitudes out loud, and she would kind of mimic me and stuff. And that's what I do today, And I remembered, in fact, a couple weeks, I always wake up, thanks for another day. Thanks for my sobriety and my recovery. And the other day, without thinking about it, I said, and help me not take it for granted. It does not matter how much time we have. The addict brain can kick in, but we have, what is it, contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So, and there's a funny thing in the book where it says, we meditate, right, do our 11-step prayer and meditation, and if we stop, we get back to it quickly. I don't know about you, but, I tried that when I was new. I'll talk about that in a minute, actually. Well, I'll talk about that now. And because the higher power thing did freak me out, but everybody who had a higher power was happy, and I wanted what they had. So I acted as if. I don't know if you've done any acting as if. It works really well. So I acted as if I had a higher power. And I had a meditation bench that I'd bought while I was using that I would, okay, I'm going to meditate, get stoned, never sat on the bench, ever. So I pull out my meditation bench, and I make an altar with, the elements of the earth, and I light candles, and I am praying the prayers I learned here to the drywall, because there ain't nothing there. And I do that, and I don't even know how long I did that. It could have been weeks, it could have been a couple months, but one day I didn't feel alone. Now, I don't know about you, but I felt alone pretty much my whole life. I think I had a guardian angel when I was little, but I think after I was traumatized, I didn't. And so I felt alone my whole life. And so this was a miracle, like, I'm not alone. What the hell is it? So I wasted 4 years trying to figure it out. And I went to meetings with people that said, fire your old idea of God. And I don't believe God has a brain. God's bigger than that. In fact, I think all of us together are God. That's what I think today. Because there's no space between us. There is nothing between us except light. And there are cells between us with light in them. So we're all connected all the time. So I don't know. My ideas of higher power change, and I love playing with it. I love having images of, like a big, huge goddess that I sit in her lap, and I'm like tiny in her little lap, and lean against her, and she's got my back. I don't remember that all the time, but when I do, I feel comforted. So I want to be comforted. I want to feel comfortable in my skin. And I can only do that by working these steps and staying connected to other people. So let's see. Okay, so when I started meditating, I would say, let go and let God, because I didn't know what else to do. So I'd say it over and over again. And I got some pieces of like heavy paper, and I would write with Elmer's glue and write, let go. And I put glitter on it, and then I had these glitter pictures. Well, I made like 3 of them that said, let go. I somehow forgot to write one that said, let God. So I'm 30 years, probably between 25 and 30 years sober, and I went, I got to learn how to let God, because, I'm a control freak to the max. And I know part of it is having to control so much around my daughter and her life and all the things she needs that don't come easily. Nothing comes easily in the disability world. It's horrible. But I'm like, okay. And so I start letting God, like whatever that is, the universe. And then in the last, few months, I've decided to do what Jules did Friday and just talk and not have a bunch of notes and to trust that whatever comes out of my mouth is going to be okay. That's all pretty new too. And so when I say that and I talk to people and they're like, 3 years sober and they're already doing that, I'm like, wow. The 100th monkey thing is really true. Do you know the 100th monkey story? So there was a bunch of monkeys on Pacific Islands, and they eat yams that come out of the sand. One day, a mama washes off her yam in the sand to give to her baby. Well, she's doing something different, so the other monkeys attack her. But she keeps doing it anyway. So then the other monkeys start washing their yams in the water so they don't have to eat the sand. After 100 monkeys on that island clean their yams, monkeys on other islands clean their yams. I know that everything we do here ripples out to other people, and that the work I've done, you know, like you don't have to wait 7 years to get grateful. You don't have to wait 11 years to go, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So I heard a new slogan the other day I'd never heard. My progress is perfect. Where I'm at today, and I've had a lot of people tell me that this weekend, you know, where you're at is fine. Where you're at is perfect, of course. How could it be anything but perfect? Because this is where you are. So I love that I keep hearing more stuff. I never stop learning in this program. And I didn't know what to expect when I got here. It took me like all of Friday to just land here. That's another story. But I've been really grateful to be here and to hear what everybody's saying and to learn more. I never can stop learning, you know. And I will say, well, here I'm remembering this, that I did my first 4 steps sometime in my first year, and it was with my Al-Anon sponsor. And she had me do 6 and 7 immediately, like right there. Because when I came in, I thought I would do 12 steps, I would get serenity, and I would graduate. I really did, because I believed in perfection. I believed that I wasn't good enough unless I was not making mistakes. I believed that I had to be better and different than who I was so that you would love me. And I've learned here that that's all bullshit. Like, I'm okay, and I just lost that one. So I am okay. So in the beginning, you know, that was in '86. We didn't write. Nobody I knew was writing about 1, 2, or 3. We wrote on 4, and then just slided through 6 and 7. Well, I think 6 and 7 are the heart. I think 6 and 7 are where we change, really change. And my latest sponsor, I've had a bunch of sponsors. I move, they move. I had one go to Ireland and came home drunk. But my latest sponsor I've had for quite a while. And when I got to 6 and 7 with her, she'd say, okay, what is it you want to let go of? Well, usually judgment and impatience, and you know, the usuals. And what do you want to replace it with? Now, I don't know about you, but I have found it's much easier to grow compassion and patience than to get rid of judgment. Because if I focus on judgment, I'm just going to keep being judgmental. But if I focus on what I want, it's going to grow. What we focus on grows. And so it's been this wonderful, I mean, I know, and the literature says, you know, we ask our higher power to take it from us and we don't specify, but, you know, I like specifying sometimes. And sometimes, you know, just help me be the best person I can be. So I get to do that with 6 and 7, but I don't know about you, but I did another 4-step the first 4 years of my recovery because I kept remembering stuff, because my memory sucks. And, you know, so whenever, and then I got to Portland, I went, oh, I never did a sexual inventory. So I was 5 or 6 years so before I did a sexual inventory. And then over the years, like, I realized, oh, I hate rich people. Okay, well, not all rich people are bad. Not all poor people are good. You know, like, I wanted to get rid of that. And so I did. And then I think I was 10 years sober, and I got in a relationship, and I got really angry at my parents. Their relationship was a nightmare. And so it's like, you didn't give me any role models, you know? And there aren't too many really good, I mean, there are some in here. There's some great MA couples in here, right? And so we get to see people having relationships that work. Me, not so much. So, but I did a 4-step about it so I could quit resenting my parents for not giving me what I wish they had given me. And that was the other thing I was thinking, how does it relate? That, you know, when I got here and they said, you know, growing up as an adult takes a lot longer than if you grow up when you're a child. So I started drinking when I was 14. I stopped growing. So I knew when I got here, I was about 14 or 15. And I didn't like the idea that I had to be the adult in my life. I wanted someone else to take care of me. I wanted someone else to have the answers. I remember before recovery, I'd have a problem and I'd go to 8 people and I'd hear 8 different answers. And they kept saying, the answers are within you. And I'm like, really? Where? You know? And they are within me, but I don't know about you. Some people write to process. I talk to process. So, and I have a lot of friends in recovery, and I have my sponsor. When there's a dilemma, I have to talk it out. And writing helps too, of course. But I don't have to do it alone, and that's the best news. I wanted to talk about service, yes. So here we are in the Bay Area, and we don't have chips, but you know what we did? We had marbles. And we painted the years. I have my 2-year marbles still. We painted with nail polish, too. So we got our marbles back. Because we'd lost our marbles, right? So if you don't have chips and you want to do that, that's a pretty fun thing. And I remember, once, I was too impatient for those business meetings when I was new. I mean, I'd be like, somebody already said that. Quit repeating people, Let's move on. Let's vote. I'd have to keep myself out of the room because I just couldn't control myself. So, everybody got together. Unity conferences started happening. So since I know how to organize things, I organized the 1990 conference in the Bay Area. And that's where we voted in how it works and the 12 traditions. And we had a dance. It was great. I think we even had a band. Didn't we have a band? We had a band. Bands were awesome. We used to have bands. We had a band called The Resentments for a while. They were good. Although Matt was a great DJ last night. Yay, Matt. So I'm a literature girl. And so here it was, 1990, and I said, okay, you people in LA, you work on step 1. You people in San Jose, you work on step 2. You people in San Francisco, you work on start writing step 3. And we're going to do this by mail. Guess how that worked? Yeah, it didn't work. I got one letter, I think. One person wrote to me and said, wrote something about one of the steps. So that didn't work. And then I think Harry wrote a lot of Life with Hope. Harry was pretty significant. Harry was the first person I heard when I was really new say, we don't turn our will over to our higher power, we turn over to the care of a higher power. And that was so important to me to hear when I was new. Frozen feelings. Let's talk about frozen feelings for a second. Then I'll get back to service. I know that I numbed everything. I didn't feel much of anything when I was using pot. And I know that when I got clean, I thought that I was going to ask for my fear and anger to be taken away like a defective character. I thought fear and anger were defects. And unfortunately, they're just feelings. And feelings are neither good nor bad, of course, but they're not comfortable. And so I knew that, and I'd heard about frostbite. I've never had frostbite, and if you have, it's supposed to be very, very painful. So here are these feelings thawing out in my body and in my mind that I'd been numbing for 15, 16 years. And I was thinking about that of it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. But that's why, we talk to somebody or write about it or do a step about it and not try to do it alone rather than going back to weed to stop the pain because it's not going to stop. It's just going to go back being frozen again. And so I'm grateful for all the support I've had with all of that. So anyway, I'm in Portland. The very first convention happens in Santa Cruz in 1995. And there's still no MA in Portland. And I go to the convention because people helped me get there. I'm a single mom. And I heard, Harry wasn't there, but Harry was in Portland. He hadn't contacted me. And he was starting an MA meeting in the Alano Club on February 1 of 1995. And so MA's been in Portland ever since. It was such a blessing. I mean, he not only helped start it in the Bay Area, he helped start it in Portland. And anyway, so here we are in Portland, and I'm in charge, kind of. But I was the first treasurer, so we got the treasury going, and we had the meeting on Wednesday night at the Alano Club that's still there, New Leaf, and then this guy Warfrat John, he started a couple meetings called CRS, can't remember shit, at the North Portland Alano Club, and they went for a while. And so by May of '97, we had enough meetings and the Treasury that Teresa and I went to LA, of course, for a conference to become a district in '97. And I'm, my name's on the board. Sure, I'll be a trustee. I've got, 10 years? 10 or 11, 10 years, almost 11. And the third legacy, I became the literature trustee. And I was given 29 stories to take home to Portland to sift through and pick 12 stories for the book. So I created a committee, and we met pretty regularly, but I worked on that damn thing every day for a year. Came back, and we didn't have computers like we do now. 10? Okay. And so, let's go a little faster. So, we come back in '98. We couldn't figure out less than 15. So there's 15 stories in the book. Yay. Okay. And if you haven't written your story yet and you want to, especially if you have experienced some of the horrible things that the very strong pot does to people, please start writing your stories. We need your stories. So it took 3 years to get printed, but it did get printed. So in 2007, I was a delegate, again, somewhere at one conference, and I said, I want a daily reflection book for MA. So I started collecting on my own, which was a stupid idea, don't do anything alone, for 7 years. I went to conventions, I went to conferences, I had writing groups in my home, and we collected close to 100 submissions. And in 2014, Terry H. was doing something with something, and I turned it over to him, and Moz had it, and it sat for 5 years. And in 2019, Chris, a woman on the phone line in Michigan, they were using an NA daily book, and they contacted Moz and said, we don't want to use NA, we want our own. And so they dug up the beginnings of the book and created a committee, which I didn't hear about for a year, but after a year I heard about it, and I joined the committee, and Louis has got his things in there. A lot of you, how many of you submitted submissions? Woo, baby. All right, so I hope you're reading it. I hope you're reading it and finding your submissions. It's just thrilling to me, actually. And you know what? I realized in the last couple of years, I had a daily book when I was a kid. I had a Richard Scarry cartoon daily book when I was a kid. I have over 10 daily books in my home at this time. I counted them. So I'm a daily book girl, and it's almost ready. If you haven't reviewed it, or you don't have to review it, you don't have to edit it, just read it. It's fun, and read it at your meetings. It's available for all of us right now online. And I don't know about you, but going into the Marijuana Anonymous website is not very hard. I didn't never know the name. I never could remember, but you just Google Marijuana Anonymous, and there you go. But it's marijuana-anonymous.org, and then you look under literature, Living Every Day with Hope. That's the title. It's a great title. Okay, so I brought this up here. These are on sale now for only $10 because there's a ton of them. And you can take them because the first books didn't have an ISBN number. This has an ISBN number. You know what that means? You can donate this to your local library, and they will take it. Okay, so bring one home. And then in Portland, we give them to treatment centers. We had one treatment center near our meeting. They didn't even know about MA until we brought them books, which is, still to this day, of course. So it's a good thing. And then the last thing I wanted to say was about my next writing project that I want to work on. I want us to have more literature. And whether it's a brochure or a book, although I really would love another book, I think it'd be really awesome to have a book titled Marijuana is a Dangerous Drug, and have people write about their detox stories. I mean, the CHS thing, and Carol had seizures when she tried to quit, and and then people. What I heard all of this weekend, that people their bipolar gets activated with pot. And then there's psychotic breaks and mental, so there's the dual diagnosis stuff, and then there's the physical stuff of pot that is just killing people and hurting people so badly. So if we had, say, here, it is, yes, it is dangerous. So I'm happy. My email is smilingheart9, smiling heart, because I am a smiling heart. And my number is 9. It's always been 9, and October 9th is today, at Yahoo. Email me. Or get my phone number, whatever. But start writing. Write your stories. It's good. Share them. Talk about it in your meetings, that kind of thing. Okay, I probably don't have much time. What do I want to say? I love this program. Being gentle, self-care. Okay, yeah. I still don't have a good picker. So I'm single. I might stay there the rest of my life. But, I'm a work in progress. Maybe as I love myself more, I'll be able to pick someone who could love me back. I was thinking about that. Everybody likes to be loved differently. And we need to ask each other, how do you like to be loved? How do you know you're being loved? And I need to figure that out, too, so that when I find anybody, 5 minutes? Oh, wow. Okay. Let's have a little dance party. And whether that happens or not, at this point, I don't care. I'm enjoying my own company in a way that I never have, actually, because I'm not in a relationship where I'm feeling disappointed and let down. And I've done that most of my life. They've all been addicts and a lot. Well, since I got recovery, when I met Marie's dad, he'd had 8 months, but he only had 7 days when I met him, and I had 7 months. Not supposed to get involved in that first year, but we did, and we were at the Berkeley Fellowship at that Sunday morning meeting, and he was on the smoking side of the room, facing the non-smoking side of the room. How's that? I'll never get involved with a smoker or a tall person. He was very tall and smoking. I didn't listen to myself. And we broke up after 2 years, and then the earthquake happened, and we got back together. And so I tell Marie it's her fault that we got back together, because she wanted us to be her parents. She's like, no, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. So a lot of people have supported her in her life, and that's really great. And, when the last 2 weeks, I've been experiencing more of, okay, higher powers, if this is meant for her, yay, help us happen. And if it's not, okay. In a way that, I didn't used to know how to do that, because I have an idea of what I want, and then I go for it, instead of trusting in the absolute goodness of the universe. Alice Walker has a book by that name. I love remembering that, to trust in the absolute goodness of the universe. And with that, I will say thank you very much for listening.